all here for a water quality presentation. In case you haven't heard of or been a part of any Conservation Nebraska event, Conservation Nebraska is a nonprofit organization that protects our state's natural legacy by educating the public and supporting communities in increasing civic engagement. I am Lindsay, and I serve as an AmeriCorps member in the Common Ground program, which is a part of Conservation Nebraska. What I do is we help educate Nebraskans across the state about conservation issues facing their communities, and we do this primarily through educational events like this one. But without further ado, we'll go ahead and get going. And also, just so everyone is aware, you are muted throughout this. If you have any questions, just pop it into the chat, and we'll be able to get to you that way. All right, are you ready, Erinn?
Yes, I am. So I'm Erinn Richert. I'm a water tech here at the Upper Big Blue NRD. My main focus is mainly with water quality programming and anything that comes with it. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay. There we go. Okay, so within our district, we have 3 long-range goals for groundwater quality, kind of what we aim for within our programs. The first goal is to use education, research, management practices, and other incentives to reduce the potential for non-point source contamination of groundwater while not affecting the economy in a negative way. The second goal is to develop monitoring and evaluation programs for non-point source contamination. And the third goal is to encourage the use of best management practices and the adoption of equipment and techniques to reduce nitrate leaching. So nitrates are kind of a big issue within our district as well as across the state. So there are management concerns. And so with this is the most recent map that we have. It shows the state of Nebraska as well as nitrate samples taken. So you can see the legend there, the green 0 to 7.5 milligrams per liter, same as parts per million. Yellow 7.5 to 10. 10 is the safe drinking level. So the orange and red dots are kind of the areas to kind of be on the lookout for. But if we look here, this is where our district is located. So to kind of show you, it's not just an Upper Big Blue NRD problem, but a statewide problem that we are together trying to figure out what can we do to help make this more manageable. This graph shows the number of samples that have been taken for nitrate analysis since the mid-70s up through 2017. In the 70s through the early 80s, they weren't as concerned as for nitrates. There wasn't a problem that they were really too aware of. So your sampling consistency is not going to be as accurate as, you know, within the last 10, 20 years where we do have those higher number of samples. And so in the 70s, your median nitrate level is going to be, you know, that's why it's bouncing a lot, is because we don't have that consistent sampling compared to now, compared to the last 20 years. So if we do look at the last 20 years, we can see sampling is more consistent. We are having roughly within the same range of samples being taken. Your median nitrate level it does fluctuate, but it is staying pretty on trend. And then your trend line, while it is still increasing, if you look at the last map, you can see that it's quite a bit of an increase. But within the last 20 years, it is increasing, but it's a little bit more stable. That's just because we are getting more samples. We are looking at, there is a problem, what can we do to help solve it? So how does the Upper Big Blue NRD factor into this? We divide our district into 12 management zones, and as this map shows where those zones are located, they each have their own median nitrate value, and as you can see from the legend, we have 3 different phases. Each phase, they have different rules and regulations that they do need to abide by. So your phase 1 areas are below a 7 part per million median value, so they kind of are a little bit less rules and regs for that. Phase 2 is between 7 to 10 parts per million. And so they have a bit more regulations that they do need to follow. And phase 3 is above 10 parts per million, and they kind of have the stricter rules and regulations. So how do we get these values? We get them from our summer sampling program, which we do every year. And each dot represents a well that we do sample. And as you can see from the legend on the left, each color shows a different, the different well that we do. And if we take a closer look at Seward County, you can see, yes, nitrate values do kind of fluctuate. You do have, the smaller the dot, the lower the concentration, the bigger the dot, the higher the concentration. So, you're kind of having a different value throughout the entire county. So apart from management concerns, people are concerned about the health effects that, drinking water with high nitrates can have. So the biggest problem, I would say, would be blue baby syndrome. That's the most common one. Infants below 6 months of age who do drink water containing high nitrates, again, above 10 parts per million, the safe drinking level, they can become seriously ill. And if they don't get treatment, they can potentially pass away. It is also recommended that pregnant women, nursing mothers, elderly, anyone who really has a compromised immune system, if they have like an autoimmune disease, to not drink water high nitrates because it can cause potential health issues. So, we recommend having a reverse osmosis system installed in their house, or if at all possible, use bottled water just to kind of help combat that problem. Every fall, we have a domestic sampling program. We have about 250 wells that we sample each year. This is from fall 2019. Each color dot represents a range, so that your blue and green are below your 10 parts per million. So those wells, I would say are safe to drink from, but then your yellow, orange, and red are higher in nitrates. And so those ones would be a little bit more of a concern, something that you would want to keep more of an eye on. Again, just a close-up of Seward County. As before with our summer sampling program, you can see that it's not one area might have, less nitrates and one area might have more. It's kind of a widespread issue throughout not only Seward County, but also throughout the district. And also as a private well owner, it is important that you are checking the quality of your water at least once a year, because it is your responsibility to know what is, in your water. So it's not a bad idea to test for nitrates, and we do offer free sampling here at our office. You can always give us a call and we can definitely get you set up with that. And then also going on with that, we have been testing for other contaminants. In 2014 through 2016, we did a 3-year study looking at arsenic, selenium, and uranium. We collected about 162 samples and just kind of looked to see what exactly is going on with our district. So here we have the results map for arsenic. The safe level is set at 10 parts per billion. Again, nitrates parts per million. Arsenic, selenium, uranium, they have a very smaller concentration, so they're in parts per billion. Long-term health effects, if you do drink water that is high in arsenic, can be skin damage, circulatory system problem. Here on this map, there were some wells that were tested that were above that 10 parts per billion safe level. And then this is the results map for selenium. They have a higher safe level at 50 parts per billion. Long-term health effects are hair or fingernail loss, numbness in fingers or toes, as well as circulation problems. Again, there were some wells that were above that 50 parts per billion safe level. And then uranium, and they had a safe level at 30 micrograms per liter or parts per billion. Exposure can be toxic effects to the kidneys, whereas long-term effects can be increased risk of cancer. And again, we did have some wells that were above that 30 parts per billion safe level. So then this study sparked many questions, the main two being, when is the best time to sample for these elements? These samples from those maps were mainly taken during summer, so about June through August, so kind of a 3-month range. Is spring better to sample? Is fall better? So it's kind of, do we miss, a window by just doing summer? And then what wells are ideal for each contaminant? You have domestic, irrigation, shallow versus deep. So again, are we missing something by just doing a select set of samples? So then in 2018 and 2019, we used our 9 dedicated monitoring sites throughout our district to try and answer these questions. And we are also doing another round of sampling. This year, we just did the first round about a month ago now. So to kind of give you an idea, this map shows where those sites are, the green dots. So each site has 2 wells, except for 2 sites, they have 3 wells. But at each site, they have a shallow and a deep well. And so we do parameters from each well when we do our purging, just to kind of see, we look at temperature, pH, and connectivity, just to kind of see what's going on there. And then we normally take a nitrate sample, but because we are doing this extra sampling, we're also doing arsenic, selenium, and uranium. Normally, when we sample these wells, it's in March and September, but we decided with this extra sampling to do March, May, July, September, and October, just to kind of give us a good range of what, when's the best time. So we are going to take a closer look at our Beaver Crossing site, and here it is circled on the map. It is the only dedicated well site located within Seward County, so we're just going to go ahead and take a closer look at this one. So here we have 2 graphs showing the nitrate values from 2018 and 2019. And I have listed below your safe level at 10 parts per million. Both of these wells, same well, but both sets of samples are showing, it is above that safe level. So something to keep in mind. And then if we look at the maps together, you can see that they are following a similar trend. And so that's kind of what we're hoping to see with these other contaminants. So here we have arsenic, and then for the next 3, we were not able to get a sample set done in March, so that's why it's being excluded in the 2019 set. But you can kind of see it is following a somewhat similar pattern in the beginning of the year, but near the end of the year, it kind of deviates. And so if we look at that, you can see that deviation a little bit better. And this is a reason why we are doing another round of sampling this year, is to see which year could have been the outlier, if there was some type of environmental factor, or if it was maybe even a sampling error that could have resulted in these different numbers. But this is one of the main reasons why we're doing another round in 2020. So then here we have selenium. Again, kind of a similar pattern early in the year, but then once we get to September and October with that set of sampling, you kind of get a deviation with your numbers. And then uranium, as before, same thing early in the year, but by the end of the year, you're kind of having that deviation. So that part answered the first question, when's the best time of the year to sample it? And then the second part was which type of well. So I took from the Beaver Crossing site a shallow well, which is what we just looked at the results for, and then the deep well that's also located there. I have the depths listed below. The shallow goes down 100 feet, your deep well goes down 230 feet, just to kind of look at your nitrate values. Nitrates do tend to kind of stay higher up in the shallow wells. You're gonna see higher values in your shallow wells, whereas your deep wells, because nitrates take a while to kind of sink down that deep, you're gonna have lower values. And this is something that we do see across our 9 dedicated monitoring sites. Shallow wells do tend to have higher nitrates, whereas your deep wells have lower nitrates. So one fun project that we just recently started is a citizen scientist project. We are partnering up with Centennial Public Schools located in Utica. And what we are doing is we are teaching students about water quality issues within their area, as well as what they can do to help with that. A similar project has has been done with Newman Grove High School. They did a project with Shell Creek. Some of you may have seen the video on the I Love Public Schools website. With their project, they were mainly doing surface water with Shell Creek, kind of looking at different contaminants that could be found within the creek, as well as different species of fish and other animals that can be found there. So we're kind of basing our project off of that, but focusing more on groundwater. So the two main goals that we have with this project is to provide a hands-on experience for students and to also raise awareness about water quality issues in their community. And then we did a lab day earlier last month, and so this picture was the teacher, myself, and the students that participated. So with our lab day, we had 3 samples from the Friend, Exeter, and Utica area. I gave the students a crash course on how to perform the sample analysis, and then they actually did the sample analysis themselves. And then after we got the results back, we had a discussion about that, about how they could relay those results to the landowner. So with these 3 samples, one of them came back pretty low, one came back around 10. You would, the homeowner that had the 30 parts per million, how would you tell them, like, yes, your water is high in nitrates, but here's what you can do to help combat that. So looking ahead, we are applying for grants to provide a spectrophotometer and other lab supplies to Centennial Public Schools. Fall 2020 students will be doing their own sampling. Again, I will be helping them out with that, kind of giving them tools on how to perform the sampling, as well as doing the analysis and then relaying those results back to the homeowners. Students will communicate with the public about threats to the public water supply and what they can do to help combat that. And then the overall goal of this whole project is, if this project is successful, we could help expand it to other schools within the district. Okay, so are there any questions?
Okay, I'll hop back on here for this. So
Okay.
if you do have any questions, just type it into the chat. Let's see. As I did have a question, Erinn.
Yeah.
So what can like individuals do to help with their water quality if they are in maybe an area that has you know, some high level contaminants?
Yeah, one thing that I would definitely recommend is sampling their well more than one time, you know, more than once a year. Some people do it once a year. I have some people that do it about once a month because they're just so concerned. But if you are in an area that is higher in nitrates, I would definitely recommend just knowing your own well, the nitrate value, and sampling it, you know, maybe twice a year just to see, you know, is it increasing, is it decreasing? And then also installing a reverse osmosis system so that way they can make sure that they are drinking safer water instead of, you know, water high in nitrates.
Okay. Okay, so we have a question from Dakota, and
Okay.
she asks if you know what a Brita filter is filtering out.
I don't know for sure, but I can tell you that it's not going to filter out nitrates. Brita filters aren't built the same way as reverse osmosis systems, so it might filter out a little bit of nitrate, but it's not going to be enough to really make a difference.
Right, let's see if we have any more. Give them a second. See, I guess I have another one. I know, you know, you showed some of the graphs and stuff of, you know, what the nitrate levels and stuff looks like in Seward County. Do you know kind of what it looks like for Seward specifically, the city?
The city itself, not really. We don't do a lot of testing. The city of Seward, they do have their own public supply wells, and so they are responsible for testing those on a regular basis and making sure that they are providing safe water to city residents. A lot of cities, towns, villages within our district, you know, they do follow those same rules, and if they do have high nitrates, then there are additional steps that they need to do to make sure they can get their level back down below 10 parts per million.
Looks like that may be it.
Okay.
We'll see, maybe we'll just another minute. So if you have any questions, now is your time. I do want to thank you, Erinn, for joining us and giving us this presentation. And I want to thank anyone and everyone that watches this presentation. If you have any questions, see Erinn has her email up here, as well as feel free to message us on Facebook, and someone will, you know, get to you. So it looks like that is it for questions. So looks like we're gonna wrap this up a little early. But yeah, again, just thank you to Erinn and to everyone that watches.